This morning I'm going to talk to you about making a decision around when to start the second rotation on your dairy farm. So if we stand back and look at the wet and windy spring we've had, with an exceptionally dry January and then a brutally wet February and early March. And farmers are kind of fall into one of three categories. The first category of farms are those on pretty dry farms who are very little or unaffected by the wet weather we experienced. These farms will have anything from 2/3 to 3/4 of the farm grazed at this stage, so they're well underway to completing the first rotation by early April. The second category of farms though were more affected by the wet weather, particularly in February, and didn't get cows out to grass until early March, and will typically only have about 1/3 of the grazing area grazed at this stage. What will determine when they start a second rotation isn't the area of grasses left to be grazed, but rather the recovery on the first grazed paddocks. And typically those sections of ground will be ready for regrazing and the second rotation should start. It'll be around the 10th or 15th of April. It'll be when there's a cover of around 1,000 to 1,200 kilos of grass on the first 3 or 4 paddocks that were grazed in early March. The third category are those who are most affected by the wet weather we experienced. On these farms, typically only 10 or 15% of the grazing area has already been grazed. And this will push out the start of the second rotation even later. So again, we're talking about looking at pre-grazing covers on the first grazed sections of grass of around 1,000 kilos to 1,200 kilos per hectare. And again, we're talking about looking at having those covers on 3 or 4 of the earlier grazed paddocks. And this will occur on those farms sometime around the 20th of April. Again, they'll have a proportion of the farm that won't have been grazed, and in this case it could be up to 20%. Whether there is 10, 15 or 20% of the grazing area ungrazed when the first paddocks are ready for regrazing, those ungrazed sections, I'd recommend that what you do with them is take an early cut of high quality silage off them in early to mid-May. Bale them up and it'll be excellent feed for cows in the later stage of the lactation in September, October, November time of the year. So ungrazed grass, harvest in early May and use it to feed as high quality silage at the back end of the year.